About a year ago, my sister and asked me to be her maid of honor. And honestly, I found it totally baffling. Because ever since they were little girls, she and her best friend, Ruby, had a pact. Ruby would be her maid of honor. Everyone brought it up during wedding planning, and just brushed it off. When the big day finally arrived, Ruby was there, all right, but she was relegated to the back, wearing this totally eccentric, flamboyant dress. Now, Ruby's always had a wild sense of fashion, so nobody really batted an eye at the time. And, though, decided Ruby was trying to outshine her. I saw her, glass in hand, marching towards Ruby, clearly planning to accidentally spill champagne all over that dress. I grabbed her arm. I tried to talk her down, calmly, quietly. And she just snapped. She started screaming. The entire audience turned to us, and I just looked her dead in the eye and said, "And either you stop screaming right now and stop embarrassing yourself, or I am walking out of this wedding venue right now." Her face went scarlet. She stopped yelling, thankfully, and stomped off to the bathroom. The rest of the wedding was just awkward. You could taste the tension in the air. I probably should have talked to Ruby, but I didn't. Ever since that day, and has been on a crusade against Ruby, blaming her for everything, saying their friendship is over. And here's the weird part. She hasn't blamed me once. Every single ounce of her anger has been directed at Ruby, for what seems like absolutely no reason. After yet another one of Anne's Ruby tirades, I just snapped. I told her, "And you've been friends with Ruby your whole life. You know how she dresses. You should have expected this. If it was such a problem, you should have said something, made her a bridesmaid, or communicated in any way. And just lost it with me." She screamed. She said nasty things. And then she sent Ruby some truly vile messages, just completely tearing her down. She didn't say a word to me all of yesterday, but she's been bad-mouthing me to our dad, who, of course, took her side. My mom, bless her, told, and she needed to apologize to Ruby for those messages and for yelling at me. So now, and isn't talking to her either. I don't even know what's going on, but Ruby swears they didn't have any argument before the engagement, nothing to explain being pushed out, and just kept saying it was none of my business and I should be supporting my real sister. My dad, of course, agreed. She'd even rallied the other bridesmaids against me. I was just so utterly confused. Update 1. I actually woke up one morning planning to tell and how much she meant to me, hoping to bridge the gap. But then I saw her face. She looked like someone peed in her cereal again, so I decided against it. Instead, Anne's husband, Dave, pulled me aside. He looked utterly defeated. Apparently, they'd had a massive fight too, because he tried to defend Ruby on the wedding night. He asked me if I could explain where he misstepped and how to make it up to, and this was the first time he'd ever asked me for help with their relationship, so he was clearly at a loss. I told him I was just as confused. We didn't even know why Ruby wasn't in the bridal party. He should just try and talk it out with Anne. And that's when Dave dropped a bombshell. He said Ruby wasn't in either wedding party because he wanted her as his best woman and wanted her as maid of honor. But Anne wouldn't budge. She insisted they just drop her from both parties. He claimed Anne had explained it to Ruby, and that's why they had a fight. I just hung up, completely floored. But the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. If they had a massive fight about Ruby being maid of honor, surely Ruby would remember it? And why would Dave want Ruby as his best woman? He only met her after he started dating and, as far as I knew, Update 2. You guys, I'm even more confused. 30 minutes ago, Dave called me again, and his voice was furious. He asked if any of his groomsmen had behaved inappropriately towards me. I could hear Anne screaming in the background, something unintelligible. I told him they had been perfect gentlemen at the wedding, and I hadn't had any contact with them since. Then he asked if Ruby knew she was meant to be best woman. I told him I didn't know, that both she and had been quite secretive about what happened between them, and that he'd be better off asking her himself. He just laughed, a bitter, hollow sound, and hung up. Then Ruby texted me, asking what was going on, and if I knew about this whole best woman / maid of honor thing. And just now, one of the bridesmaids sent me a warning. If Dave calls you, don't answer him. Meanwhile, and is on the phone with my dad, absolutely screaming. I have no clue what's happening, but I know the truth is buried somewhere deep in this mess. Update 3. You guys, it all came out today. There was so much shouting, so many tears. Everything
has been
exposed. My sister, Anne? She has been lying to everyone. First, it turns out Anne's husband, Dave, has a past. He's an ex-substance addict, and he'd been to jail. But here's the kicker. He met Ruby before he met Anne. After he recovered, he was really struggling, and Ruby helped him immensely. He considers her one of his closest friends. 2 years later, Dave was doing well, stable, and functional. Around this time, Ruby introduced him to Anne was very reluctant to have a relationship with Dave because of his past, but she had strong feelings for him. Eventually, they started dating. But she was still ashamed of the person he used to be.
So, she lied.
She told us all they met on a dating app. Dave, trying to keep Anne happy, consented to this at the time. But as Dave got more comfortable with himself and the relationship became more serious, he told, and she had to be honest with us about his history. She agreed. But she didn't. Instead, she wrote Dave a fake letter from my family, praising him for his honesty and accepting him. She even told Ruby that our parents had reacted really badly to Dave's past, so Ruby never brought it up with Dave or our family, thinking it was still a very sensitive topic. Can you believe the depths of this manipulation? When Dave proposed, Anne started to panic about the wedding. Dave wanted people from his support group there, and he wanted Ruby as his best woman. This would expose everything. It would reveal the truth about his past and Anne's lies. So, Anne decided to continue lying instead of coming clean. Here's what she did. She pretended to be so upset that she couldn't have Ruby as her maid of honor, using it as an excuse to argue Ruby should be dropped from both wedding parties. She told Dave she'd explained it to Ruby and they'd had a fight, trying to keep him happy. But in reality, she never told Ruby anything about being best woman. She knew if Ruby knew, it would get back to me and Mom, and we'd start asking questions about Ruby's relationship with Dave. That's why Ruby was so confused and couldn't think of anything. And also told Dave and his friends from his support group not to mention his addiction in speeches, or even casual conversation, claiming it was a sensitive subject for certain family members. And then she went to the bridesmaids. She fed them a mountain of lies about Ruby. She causes scenes. She tries to sleep with groomsmen. One of them was her ex-boyfriend. She gets too drunk. She painted Ruby as a disaster waiting to happen so they dislike her and keep her away from people who knew Dave. She even told the bridesmaids that the only reason Ruby was invited was because I idolized her, ensuring they wouldn't repeat any of her lies to me. After the wedding, Anne's enormous meltdown about Ruby's dress? It was all part of it. The bridesmaids, already primed to dislike Ruby, easily believed it was a genuine slight. My dad, of course, did what and apparently expected everyone to do by caving immediately because she was the bride. If Mom and I had done the same, and would have used it as an excuse to cut Ruby out of everyone's life, and successfully isolated Dave completely. And even tried to do the same thing with Dave's groomsmen after the wedding, insisting to him that they had said inappropriate things about the bridesmaids. She was trying to remove anyone who knew the truth about Dave from their social circle. But at this point, Dave smelled a rat. He pressed her. What was the exact issue with Ruby's dress? What exactly did his friends say? And panicked, accused him of not loving her, choosing his friends over her. It turned into a massive argument. Dave, mad and suspicious, started calling people up. A couple of the bridesmaids, unfortunately, backed Anne's lies, but most were weirded out by the request. I think they successfully got that across to Dave. That's when he called me, asking if I knew what was going on, and had told Dave that I was just like him, caring about Ruby more than her, and that I wasn't there when it happened. But the timing of her story didn't match up, so Dave called me anyway. That was the weird phone call in the previous part. At this point, he knew she was spouting BS. So he confronted her again, up front, asking what was going on. And she broke down. She told him everything. He was absolutely fuming. He texted all of us, letting us know about his past, and then basically kicked Anne out. She came to us, where she then had to explain everything again. I never thought Anne was capable of this level of deception and manipulation. I don't think she's ever done something like this before. I feel a strange mix of pity and profound disappointment for her, even though I'm really hurt by what she did. She's absolutely shaken, feels so guilty, so miserable, convinced things will never work out with Dave. My mom is fuming, can't even look at her. She's furious that Anne would deceive and hurt so many people like this. I totally understand where she's coming from. My dad is also very shocked and hurt, and texted Ruby, sending her a message explaining and apologizing. Ruby is understandably furious. She just told Anne that she couldn't speak to her right now, but maybe she'd call her in the morning once they'd both had a chance to calm down. Dave is the most hurt out of everyone, and I completely understand why.
He wouldn't speak to Anne.
He did tell me that he truly believed he had our acceptance, and that fake letter from Anne was his most treasured possession. To find out it was a lie? Absolutely crushing. I told him we do accept him, that nobody blames him, but I don't think it helped much. He's asked for distance from our family, and I completely understand why. I don't know if he'll ever speak to Anne again, or if he'll even stay her husband. And honestly, I wouldn't blame him if he left. Update 4. The past 2 weeks have been a blur of stress, fighting, and tears. My sister and my mom have been at each other's throats. And sadly, we've learned this isn't Anne's first rodeo. This obsession with a perfect image has been going on for a long, long time. She even confessed to some truly disturbing stuff from her job, getting a mentally challenged person fired because he was in the same department as her and she couldn't have him, ruining her department's image. I feel so utterly distant from the person she's become. There's a tension between us that I'm not sure will ever heal, even though it pains me to say it about my own sister. Once my dad heard these new, gut-wrenching revelations, he decided and needed a therapist. She fought him tooth and nail, leading to another massive fight. I've never seen him so angry, and I think that's why she finally agreed. The therapist is supposed to help and process her emotions and hopefully get to the root of her problem. I suggested family therapy too. Hopefully, we can all learn about boundaries and each other, and maybe, just maybe, move on. And has been talking a lot with Ruby. Ruby's still incredibly upset, but I'm trying not to meddle there. Ruby and I still talk a lot, just not about Anne. Then, 2 days ago, Dave sent a message that, I think, sadly resolves this terrible situation. After learning this is part of a pattern of behavior, he doesn't want to be married to Anne anymore. He feels she hasn't just hurt him deeply, but completely deceived him about the type of person she is. I know from Ruby that he's seeking therapy and has confided in friends, so he has a strong support system around him. I'm keeping my distance, but knowing he's okay helps a little. Anne took this news badly. When she first got the message, I think she had a panic attack. She was shaking, crying, barely breathing. And she knows Dave learned about her past from Ruby, and she is furious with Ruby for telling him. She's just as preoccupied with the thought of being someone divorced as she is with the fact that Dave is leaving her. I really hope therapy helps her. And even though I'm not taking it as hard as my mom, I do feel guilty. Guilty for not noticing this sooner. Because she's just not well. Call to action. This whole thing has been such a roller coaster of emotions and revelations. Have any of you ever uncovered such deep-seated manipulation in someone you thought you knew? What would you do in my situation now? Let me know in the comments.